Hiya, this is Evie Kovu. I'm going to go over how to run some C13 sites. If you haven't seen part one goes over the more simple sites, the Fortification Frontier Stronghold and the Solar Cell. In this one, I'm going to be going over the Outpost Frontier Stronghold and the oruze construct. Also in part one, I do a little bit of explanation of why this works in a confessor, how you're able to actually run level C3 sites in a confessor, and all that fun stuff. Like what actually is a C13 that enables us to do it this way. Um, I briefly mentioned in part one that the Outpost Frontier Strongholds and the oruze are a little bit more difficult because it requires a little bit more knowledge of the site itself, and the fact that the sites require bookmark making. Now, it's nothing complex with the bookmarks. It's not like you need to leave your ship, go to a pod, and bookmark the site like that. Nothing like that. All it is you need a perch on the site to reposition yourself. So I'm going to briefly explain what a perch is, how you make it. Um, all it is you initiate warp to something, and about here, let me get the pen. About here on the screen, you'll have your distance kind of meter, like how far away you are. It'll be like AUs, and then it will be like 100,000 kilometers, and then it'll be like 80,000 kilometers. And right when you see it hit about 10,000 kilometers, that's when you want to hit save for your bookmark. And that's going to be anywhere from like 10,000 kilometers all the way down to like 500 kilometers. The game is pretty awkward when trying to save this bookmark in like the actual position of your tag. You don't want it to go over 10,000 kilometers because then you can't like use the look at button to look at things on the site. But you also cannot have it be closer than 150 kilometers. If it's any closer than 150 kilometers, you can't warp back to it. Anyway, I'm gonna play the video here, and I'm gonna show you how we set up the bookmark of the Outpost Frontier Stronghold, and I'm gonna show you like where all the things spawn. So here we go, we warp. You see I've already got the bookmark saved here. I just haven't submitted it. So I've already got like it's back, it's in my recon folder. Um, and right here is you're looking at the distance, and then you hit save. Immediately you warp back to it. These towers will hit you pretty hard. Um, it's not going to kill you, but it is going to hit you. So what we do, and their tracking is pretty abysmal. So you're going to warp back to the perch, then warp back at the towers. Sometimes your armor will go further and you'll just hang out the bookmark for a little bit longer. Sometimes it won't be as bad. So right here, let me try to get that to go away. Is what it is. I'll explain it up here. Here we go. So obviously wave one's right here. No big issue there. The battleship's just gonna keep burning off in this direction. Nobody really cares about it. You'll burn around the towers to avoid them from hitting you, and then you'll begin to orbit the battleship. Wave 2 will spawn somewhere over here and up, but you don't really care about Wave 2 because it's 4 cruisers that don't do any E-war. So it really is a non-issue about Wave 2. You use all of the time of Wave 2 to set yourself up for the final wave. And Wave 3, the last wave, is actually about here, but then up. So you'll drop your MTU somewhere up here. And again, once the camera changes, it'll all make a little bit more sense, and I'll walk you through it. But that's really it about this site. The last wave is incredibly difficult because it's 6 webs. All the frigates web you, all the battleships web you. You need to burn off the frigates as quickly as possible. And then you need to try to figure out how you want to orbit the battleships. Sometimes it's difficult, sometimes they're a little bit further away. What you really don't want to have happen is the battleships. Here, let me draw this because this will help visualize it for you. So let's say you're blue. We'll put it right where I am. And let's say the battleships are here and here. The battleships are going to move away from you. What you don't want to have happen is one to go away and this one to go this way. Because what ends up happening, and say you want to orbit this guy here, this one over here is going to hit you a lot harder. So you're either going to try to thread the needle as best you can, or you're going to try to, like a sheepdog here, and just try to herd them, essentially. Instead of orbiting on the inside, you want to try to orbit on the outside to force them to kind of move in the same direction. Anyway, let's go through the video and I'll explain things as it happens. This site, you may need to go into defensive mode on the last wave. The first wave is pretty straightforward. When you do warp back down into the towers, be in defensive mode, and then after they miss all 3 of their first shots, then you come out of defensive mode and go into sharpshooter mode. The main thing about defensive mode with all of this is the fact that defensive mode decreases your signature radius. So you have a pretty good chance that they'll miss, even though you're not like really moving. Like you only just started, but being so close with such a low signature radius, you've got a pretty big shot. Right here, battleship, super simple, just burn it down. He webs you, so trying to get in range to use multi-frequency is gonna kind of blow, but it's can't kill you by himself. There's nothing he can. I mean, alright, he can kill you if you stay still. Don't stay still. Try to get around him and take tank it. But that's really it with the outpost for now. This is all going to be really simple until you need to do MTU placement. Again, the second wave is going to be somewhere over here. Of course, it's going to be somewhere in this area here, between the signature location and the structure. Again, these cruisers do not matter. They're not going to do that much. Just use Aurora till they get closer. You're probably going to be stuck using ultraviolet for a really long time. And there you can see I'm just double checking, make sure I'm about at the right spot. But they're all going to spawn. Wave 3 is going to spawn somewhere in this general area, and a little bit higher. So, pretty straightforward. Just gotta kill these tanky cruisers. Now, outposts are the longest site out of all of the C13 sites. The ISK per EHP isn't too bad, but they are slower than any of the others. You could probably do an outpost in about 10 minutes, 8 minutes, probably your upper limit. The average is probably going to be somewhere around like 12 minutes per outpost. But not a lot of people know how to do them. So if you're looking to leave a site to get like randoms that come into your C13 to die, a really good option will be to leave an outpost frontier. Right here you can see I don't want to go in the middle of them because I really do want to try to keep them moving in the same direction. So I try to go over the top of this battleship here and slightly to the side of him. Again, burn all the frigates down as quickly as you can. That is what will kill you. And sometimes you could end up with a poor spawn and everything could spawn like, I don't know, 15, 20 kilometers away from you. If that's the case, you have options. You can either warp back to your perch, and then you can warp it down to your MTU, or you need to activate defensive mode. In either case, both are acceptable, just you need to know that you need to try to do something to get you out of that situation. And defensive mode, propulsion mode, and going to the perch that you made are all valid responses to this. But that's pretty much it for the outpost. Once you've gotten it like this and you've memorized the sites, the spawns, that's not too bad. And the oruze, which we'll go to next, is going to have a similar start strategy where you have to go to a perch, but the first wave is really the difficult part of it, and knowing your options on the first wave is going to be really important. right here, instead of burning to the MTU, I just warp back to the perch, and then I go back to the MTU. Alright. This is for the oruze. Same thing. Make a perch as you're landing. You're going to see this at about 10,000 kilometers or anything less than that. And then you go back to the perch. Really, really simple. Some of you might be like, you save it as tack, but you call it perch. It's the same thing. They're interchangeable. Alright, that's a great spot to save. Pause. Alright, so these towers, I don't know if I went over it in the outpost. I'll go over it now. These are warpable. Towers are warpable. They're not like the other NPCs. You can just warp directly to them at range. So you warp to this one at 10 kilometers. Now this one's tricky. What you're missing here is a preserver cruiser. Now, same thing, same rules apply to the preserver as it did in the fortification frontier stronghold. It doesn't web you, but it repairs. And webs are the only thing that will really ever kill you in these sites. So sometimes, if it's anywhere past multi-frequency and you have other upholders within multi-frequency range, you want to kill the upholders, not the preserver. If there are no more upholders in range and the preserver's in range, you might just want to pop the preserver just to get it off the field, because then it will actually start taking longer to kill upholders. The other thing to acknowledge here, the perch that I made was in a really good spot. I could warp to this this tower here, and then move to where I need to drop the MTU, which is here, and then get to spawn 2, which will be over here. That's not always the case. Sometimes you get really unlucky with where the bookmark is. The thing that makes this site somewhat manageable is you have rocks all over this thing. So you can warp to any of the rocks to try to save yourself. Something really good is if you spawn like the signature IDs somewhere in this general area and your tack is way off over here, instead of warping directly into the site, which could be a little bit difficult, this rock down here, you can warp to it like 100 and you'll land somewhere like in this area, and then you can just kind of orbit this way around the site. Not the worst plan in the world, but you have options. That's the big thing about this, is knowing what you can do if your warping's poor or if you just get stuck in a bad spot. Speaking of options, so knowing what cruisers to hit when can be a little bit tricky, especially with this tower. Now, once all these webs hit you, all 4 webs, it becomes really difficult to sig tank that tower. It's going to be basically able to track you throughout the site. You want to kill this whatever tower is closest to you first. Should be this one on the left. You want to get that one gone first. Start moving and killing any of the upholders that are in range. Once you're down to about 2 upholders left, then kill this tower back here. If you don't kill the upholders first, what you'll need to do is immediately go back to your perch, then go to the tower, and then kill the upholders. It's, yeah, this first wave on this site is kind of a bitch. Once you get to the first wave, though, it becomes significantly easier. So, I know I already briefly went over where spawn 2 is, so let me go show you where everything is. 1's on the structure. 2 is by this rock. 3 is below the structure. So, below. It's probably about good 30, 40 kilometers below the structure. So, kill everything here at 1. Drop your MTU out here. Do that in blue. Drop your MTU here. Go to 2. And then start moving to 3 once the battleship's hull is starting to take some damage. You will need to kind of spiral in on this one. You'll need to kind of orbit the upholder battleship at like 20, then 15, so on and so forth, just so you don't get hit too hard as you're coming in. That's that. I'll point out things as we watch. Again, you'll see I warp in at 10. Leave defensive mode after the first volley, and then immediately start burning down the tower. Burn down this tower first, because as you move away from it, you don't want it to start tracking you as well. And then you start going for the cruisers as quickly as you can. Just you gotta break those webs as fast as possible. Um, Sometimes it can end up like this, where all the cruisers have burned outside of multi-frequency range. Hopping in defensive mode is fine. You just kind of gotta know your limit here, what you can and can't do. I went into defensive mode, burned down one of the cruisers, and then went back into offensive mode because sharpshooter mode, sorry. Because at that point I was going fast enough with just one web on me, where the tower's DPS didn't matter as much. Again, drop the MTU right up here, right in the center of the site, and a little bit in front of it. Do that eventually. Wave 2, clear off all of those frigates as quickly as you can. You'll probably be able to kill one with ultraviolet, and then you want to swap to multi-frequency. If the battleship is too far away and you just won't catch up to it, feel free to go back to your perch and then warp to the rock that's right in this general area at range, so that you can land on top of the battleship. Use the site's structures, the warpable structures on the site, to your advantage. If you really need to, you can just bookmark a Rex position, but usually that... I moved too quickly. Usually this rock that's coming into screen now is good enough for a warp in at range, so that you can land on top of it. And again, wave 3, going to be at this structure and down. You don't want to obviously approach directly at it. You do want to come in a little bit of an angle. I go into propulsion mode just so I can close that gap a little bit quick, and then I'll hop into propulsion at about 40 kilometers away. But from here on, it's pretty straightforward. The battleship's not going to be able to really hit you. It'll start glancing you, and then it will start to just outright miss you. Once you get to about 30-25 kilometers based on your skills, you don't really have to worry about the upholder anymore, as long as there's no webs. There are no webs on this site, on this last wave, so super simple. This is just a general tank and spank, and then you'll be out of here. I know I didn't explicitly say it, but the preservers are what you're going to want to kill first, just because they're going to rep the battleship. Their reps will matter because you're not going to be able to just burst right through it. Got too much EHP. And then go back to the perch that you made instead of burning to the MTU. Always, you don't know who's cloaked watching you. And then once the rack's close enough, warp back to your MTU, get all up and ready to go. But that's it. That is how you run all of the combat anomalies in C13 wormholes. If anyone's got any questions, feel free to send me an in-game mail, comment on the video itself, do whatever. I'm pretty accessible. There are some people that can use confessors and kikis to run the data and relic sites. For me, I don't bother. You can. I know you can. I just don't want to put that much work into it. A little too much effort for the payout, the return. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you guys all learned some fun stuff about this. Yeah, that's it. You guys on the flip side.